All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night. Law of One. Let me pull down this banner that's here, right? I got the overlay up. Let me turn that off. There we go. Let me put myself up into full screen. I almost removed myself from the studio just then, trying to do that. Right? What is that? That's crazy, right? Welcome, everybody. Risen Nation, welcome. Denise, welcome. Share this out. If you don't say anything, Reese, hello. If you don't say anything in the chat, I don't know you're here. Well, share this out, share this out. Right? Let me do the calculator here. The star date is currently minus 298,031.0762307731. If you're a Star Trek fan, that's important to you, right? If you're not, then you probably don't care about the star date that I just rattled off to you. Those of you around the Earth that are Star Trek fans, I'm sure you guys appreciate that. Okay, it's Friday night, Law of One. Like I said, share this out. I was going to wear my Santa hat and a red shirt today, and I forgot about it, and I was busy doing stuff, and then I had 15 minutes left, and I got up and went to go and look for the Santa hat and couldn't find it. And I was like, oh man, it got packed away somewhere, and the Christmas stuff that I didn't pull out, so I don't know where it is, and I should have looked for it yesterday or the day before and got it out. I even looked in two different closets for it and couldn't find it. And I think it's in one of my mom's drawers in one of her things in the bedroom, or it's in one of the tubs for the Christmas stuff that I didn't pull out this year. So I couldn't find it. So I apologize. I was going to wear a Santa hat and red shirt and put on my Santa glasses and be a Santa Claus for a minute at the beginning of the show, but I couldn't find it. So I'm not going to be able to do that. And I won't be live on Wednesday. I won't be on Wednesday to do the Q&A because Wednesday's Christmas Day, right? So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Penny. Welcome, Cassie. If I haven't mentioned your name, it's because you haven't said anything in the chat, and I don't know that you're here. So welcome around the world. If you're over there on Instagram, I can see that Denise jumped into Instagram over there and said hello, and probably also on YouTube, but I haven't gone to YouTube to pay attention, right? And it looks like Peter just shared out the video, so he's here someplace. Right, let me get back over here into the studio. Maybe Peter hasn't said hello yet, but he shared stuff out so just now. So I think he's awake. He's up. He's online. So welcome, Peter. If you're out there, you just didn't say anything hi in the chat. Okay. So it's Friday night. We're on session number 58. Let me check here. I wrote it down. And I'm hitting the wrong button here to open stuff up. I have too many windows open on my phone. I normally don't do that. I left them. Yeah, we're on session 68. We ended last week with Raw talking about getting into the tarot. So Dawn started asking about the archetypes of the tarot cards, and Dawn started asking Raw about that, and Raw started talking about that and explaining that. So we're going to continue on from there. Jamie, welcome. So we're going to continue on from there. Peter, yeah, there you are. See, I knew you shared it out, so I knew you were there. Hello again, right? Yeah, hello again. Okay, so I apologize for not being dressed as Santa Claus. Like I said, I couldn't find I have two Santa hats someplace, and I couldn't find either one of them here in the house. So they must be up in the closet in my mother's bedroom. And I didn't pull the tubs down this year to pull them out. I just pulled out necessities for the Christmas tree and decorate. I didn't pull everything. Usually I pull everything down, and then I go through it and decide what I want and what I don't want out of everything. This time I didn't do that. And because of that, I duped myself. So no Santa Claus this year. It's just maybe I'll do it after Christmas on Friday, next Friday. Maybe I'll do that and be a belated Santa Claus, right? A couple of days after Santa Claus comes. So, I guess that's better than nothing, right? So I apologize for that. It was going to be fun. So I'm just me today. Okay. So Reese, welcome. Okay. So, like I said, we're getting into the tarot cards now, and Dawn's asking questions about that. So I'm not going to continue with a long monologue. We'll just start with the Law of One, session number 68, and get going on that. So I'll do a sound check. You guys let me know if you can hear everything okay, right? Yeah, pardon me, let me start with the sound check. You guys let me know if you can hear it okay, and then we'll just go ahead and start, okay?
August 18, 1981. 68.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 68.1 Questioner. Could you first please give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Ra. I am Ra. This instrument's physical energies are depleted completely. The remainder is as previously stated. 68.2 Questioner. With the physical energies depleted completely, should I continue with the session? I'm not sure exactly what that means. Ra. I am Ra. We have available transferred energy which is due to the service offered by two of this group and, therefore, we are able to continue.
Yeah, I realized that when I was listening to it. I was like, I didn't turn that back up. I better turn that up a little bit more. So hopefully that last part's okay. If not, let me know and I'll turn it up a little bit more.
Were it not for this transferred energy, the instrument whose will is strong would have depleted its vital energies by willing the available resources.
Yeah, it might be the microphone. Let me check the settings, Reese, on the microphone and see if I don't have the microphone on the proper array. It will pick up the television more. So let me look at what I'm working with here. Yeah, it's on the webcam. Let me change that. Thank you for saying that. Let me change the audio. There, now you shouldn't be hearing the television as much. It should pull the television into the background. This microphone's more sensitive, and it was picking it up from my GoPro. This microphone over here will pick up what Raw is saying better, because this microphone was picking up Raw from these speakers, so it was picking up the stuff from the television. Now the microphone is internal, and it'll pick up Raw better. So let me go back here and press play. Thank you for pointing that out, because I realized that last week it was the same, and I didn't know that because I didn't check the audio last week. I was listening to it myself a little while ago, and I went, I better check the audio. And when I checked the audio, I thought it said that it was on the standard array. So here, let me play it now.
Sources. Thus, if there is no transfer of energy, and if the instrument seems depleted to the extent it now is,
that's much better, right? So yeah, that was I was literally the microphone from the GoPro, which is sensitive enough to pick up the TV, and they're far more than this one does in here, because this one, when I press play, is internal, and so it much better, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's continue.
It is well to refrain from using the instrument. If there is energy transferred, this service may be accepted without damage to the distortion of normal vital energy. We may note that the physical energy has been exhausted, not due to the distortion toward pain, although this is great at this space/time, but primarily due to the cumulative effects of continual experience of this distortion. 68.3 Questioner. Would you recommend a greater rest period between the end of this session and the next session?
Yeah, I noticed that last week it was the same problem, and I didn't free up memory space in StreamYard, so it didn't record the entire show. It's there for me to watch, but I can't share it. Right, so I would have to play it and record it. So I'm going to have to download it from YouTube or Facebook, and I wasn't able to download it right away from those two, so I didn't get to put the MP3 file out for the rest of the world, because I need the MP4 file to convert to an MP3 file. So I either have to play it from YouTube in my studio here and let it record the entire thing, and then convert that into an audio file and then put that out, which is probably what I'll end up doing if I can't download it off the internet. So I made sure to fix that problem. I usually look down at it when I'm before I enter the studio, and I didn't do that last week because I was in a hurry to get online. And so because of that, there is no MP3 file for that episode on around the world for people to hear currently. So I have to fix that. So I'll end up jumping over that with this one and doing the next one. And there'll be one episode missing for everybody that listens to the podcast on the MP4 file until I rip that file and then convert it, and then I can then I'll put it out in the right order, so it'll be reversed, but it'll be order number, and then jump over the order number, and then it'll still be there, so people can see that and listen to the right order when they're listening to it online. So I apologize for those of you around the world that are getting this one today, and there's one missing, and you're like, what the hell? There's an episode right in between there that's not here. I got to rip it, and then I got to convert it, and then get it out to you guys, and I'll get that this weekend. I don't know if I'll be able to do it tonight, but if not, I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll get it out there for you. I just haven't had time going into Christmas, getting closer to Christmas. I haven't had time to do that stuff. Okay, let's continue. So right now, Dawn is starting, like he always does, asking how the condition of of his wife, Carla, who is the channeler. And at this point, Ra is saying that her energy is completely depleted already. So they're going to have to boost her energy to continue.
Would that help the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. We might suggest, as always, that the support group watch the instrument with care and make the decision based upon observation. It is not within our capacity to specifically recommend a future decision. We would note that our previous recommendation of one working on alternate diurnal periods did not take into account the fragility of the instrument, and thus we would ask your forgiveness for this suggestion. At this nexus, our distortion is towards a flexible scheduling of workings based upon, as we said, the support group's decisions concerning the instrument. We would again note that there is a fine line between the care of the instrument for continued use which we find acceptable and the proper understanding, if you will excuse this misnomer, of the entire group's need to work in service. Thus, if the instrument's condition is truly marginal, by all means let more rest occur between workings. However, if there is desire for the working and the instrument is at all able in your careful opinion, it is, shall we say, a well-done action for this group to work. We cannot be more precise, for this contact is a function of your free will. 68.4 Questioner. The primary reason that we considered it important to have this session today is that I might not be around for a while, and I had a pressing question about what happened Sunday night when, apparently, the instrument was slipping into a trance state during one of the normal meetings, and I would like to question you on this. Can you give me information about what happened? Ra, I am Ra. We can. 68.5 Questioner. Would you tell me what happened in that case?
See, I love how absolute Ra is, and that's why people started dubbing him Snarky Ra, or dubbing them Snarky Ra, because he asked the question and simply, yes, I can. And then, would you please do that and describe that to me? That's hilarious.
Ra, I am Ra. We have instructed this instrument to refrain from calling us unless it is within this set of circumscribed circumstances. In the event of which you speak, this instrument was asked a question which pertained to what you have been calling the RA material. This instrument was providing the voice for our brothers and sisters of the wisdom density known to you as Lechwi. This instrument thought to itself, I do not know this answer. I wish I were channeling RA. The ones of Lechwi found themselves in the position of being approached by the Orion entity which seeks to be of service in its own way. The instrument began to prepare for RA contact. Lechwi knew that if this was completed, the Orion entity would have an opportunity which Lechwi wished to avoid. It is fortunate for this instrument, firstly, that Lechwi is of fifth density and able to deal with that particular vibratory complex which the Orion entity was manifesting, and, secondly, that there were those in the support group at that time which sent great amounts of support to the instrument in this crux. Thus what occurred was the ones of Lechwi never let go of this instrument, although this came perilously close to breaking the way of confusion. It continued to hold its connection with the mind/body/spirit complex of the instrument and to generate information through it even as the instrument began to slip out of its physical vehicle. The act of continued communication caused...
That is a name of a fifth dimensional assassin who was using, Cassie asked, for those of you around the world, you don't have if you're not on the MP4 file, Cassie was asking who is Lechwi. And that is that Ra was referring to is a fifth dimensional assassin that was grabbing a hold of Carla and getting her to start the channeling sequence so that the fourth dimensional assassin could enter and kill her. And Carla's instincts kicked in, and Dawn was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she snapped out of it. But that's literally what. And I was sitting there thinking that I was going to let it play to the end of the sentence, and then I was going to explain to you guys who that was. But literally, that's what Ra just said right there. So Lechwi was literally grabbing a hold of Carla and having her go into a trance-like state so that she would be off balance and start the communication process. And then the fourth dimensional entity was going to enter in and try to kill her. That's literally what was happening. So here, let me back it up just a tad right here, a couple of seconds, and you can hear them talking about that, or hear them talking about that.
I never let go of this instrument, although this came perilously close to breaking the way of confusion. It continued to hold its connection with the mind/body/spirit complex of the instrument and to generate information through it even as the instrument began to slip out of its physical vehicle. The act of continued communication caused the entity to be unable to grasp the instrument's mind/body/spirit complex, and after but a small measure of your space/time I recovered the now completely amalgamated instrument and gave it continued communication to steady it during the transition back into integration. 68.6 Questioner: could you tell me what the plan of the fifth density negatively oriented entity was and how it would have accomplished it and what the results would have been if it had worked? Ra: I am Ra. The plan, which is ongoing, was to take the mind/body/spirit complex while it was separated from its yellow body physical complex shell, to then place this mind/body/spirit complex within the negative portions of your time/space. The shell would then become that of the unknowing, unconscious entity and could be, shall we say, worked upon to cause malfunction which would end in coma and then in what you call the death of the body. At this point the higher self of the instrument would have the choice of leaving the mind/body/spirit complex in negative we correct time/space or of allowing incarnation in space/time of equivalent vibration and polarity distortions. Thus this entity would become a negatively polarized entity without the advantage of native negative polarization. It would find a long path to the Creator under these circumstances, although the path would inevitably end well. 68.
So before we get to the next question, yeah, that's Jamie said, yikes. Yeah, no, that's, if you think about it, that's kind of scary. This is why I've been teaching, and people like me have been teaching people and guiding people for, I don't know, generations, I guess. I've been doing it for more than 35 years in this lifetime, teaching people that you need to be careful what you're doing, because when you start to do that kind of work, especially channeling work, you become very vulnerable when you're slipping in and out of your body. And if you don't have people that are capable of realizing what's happening, then they can do things. They can't possess your body and take it over, even though the television wants you to believe that it can. The movies want you to believe that you can be possessed, and people are like, I'm possessed. Those are people that have actually allowed somebody to possess them. Okay, you have to have that choice. You have that choice. You have to make that choice. So you can't be just sitting here and some demon will just push you aside and take over, or the devil will push you aside and occupy your body like you see in the movies. That doesn't happen. But the fear of that is, if you believe that it can happen to you, then it can happen to you. So they program you with all these scary movies that evil entities can possess your body. And if you believe that strongly enough, you're actually by proxy asking for someone to push you out of the way and take over your body. Okay. And some people who might be in a suicidal mood might say, I wish that the devil would just take me. And so you can have that happen. And that's how people end up being possessed by a demon or something. People don't believe it in the modern day, but here's something that I've always said to people. If you don't think it's actually a thing, first of all, read the Bible, because you see it going on thousands of years ago in the Bible. And then if you believe that the Bible isn't true and none of that's true, and you don't think that it's an actual thing, you have to ask yourself, because you can look this up, ask yourself, why is it that the Roman Catholic Church still has dedicated people to investigate and to exorcise people from having demons or some negative entity taking control of them? Okay, that's been going on for more than 2,000 years by the Roman Empire, before they were even Roman Catholic. And you can look that up. It's in the Bible. You can look that up on, I bet Google will even tell you about it. Okay. Otherwise, you got to look up like on DuckDuckGo or somebody else that's another search engine that's not controlled by the secularists. But it's real that to this day, I'm a Roman Catholic. To this day, they still have a holy order, and it's those people's job is to go around and do that. So when people from another Christian faith or any other religion, they have somebody that has issues and they start looking at this person and they start going, this person might be possessed. Maybe they're not putting on a show. Maybe they're actually possessed. The first thing they do is call a Roman Catholic priest and inform that priest. And if that priest doesn't know, that priest calls the bishop, and the bishop will get a hold of whoever is the closest in their area to investigate that, to find out and determine if that person really is possessed. And then they will exorcise that entity out of that person.
And some other people from other religions have started adopting the ancient Roman practice of doing that. And so if you say, people say that's not a thing and it doesn't really happen, why is it that they're still practicing it? If it wasn't a thing, they wouldn't even waste the money or the time to do it. They would simply tell people that's not real, grow up. Okay. But the fact that more than one church has dedicated people whose job is to do that, just like the movie The Exorcist. Okay. That was based on real fact, actually. You can look that up. The Exorcist was based on a real person, but it wasn't a girl, it was a boy. You can actually look that up. So the movie The Exorcist, most of what you see happen in there, at least the concept, maybe not the Hollywood scene, but most of that story that you see in the movie The Exorcist came from a real possession that really happened in real life and that real Roman Catholic priests had to exercise. And it was really hard, and that's why the people learned about it, and that's why they made a movie out of it. But they changed it and made it a female character instead of a boy because they didn't want the boy's family to sue them over it. But it's come out. You can look that up. It's come out years later that was based on a true story. People just thought it was a scary movie, right? So you have to realize that when you start doing light work, that I can't stress enough. I say, your light changes and you become a target, right? And people are just like, oh, okay, whatever, right? And you don't understand, and this is why we don't lightly let people move past that seminal point, that precipice of no return. And we tell people, slow down and take your time here, because what you're going to do from here on out, you can't reverse. You can't unsee it. You can't unlearn it. You can't unknow it. And you will become a brighter light and you will become a target. So you need to have training to defend yourself, and you need to take it seriously, because if you don't, something like Ra is describing currently could actually happen to you and you would have no idea that it was going on. Most people don't. Most people don't know why they're all of a sudden their lives are crap and everybody's fighting, and they're fighting with their spouse and arguing, and the kids are arguing, and it just seems like the whole world is coming undone. Their whole lives are coming undone. And they don't realize that it changed in a moment, that it wasn't somebody had a bad day and that it never went back. It changed in a moment because somebody was out in the world and a negative entity got attached to them, followed them home, and is now in and around your family, wreaking havoc on you. The movie, The Amityville Horror, and the book, The Amityville Horror, was based on a true story. There's a real house there wasn't a prop for the movie. There's a real Amityville house. You can look it up. It was the actual house where that movie, that book, took place in real life. Okay. And what happened there was somebody was out in the world, picked up a very negative entity, brought it back to the house. And I think they also said there was a portal there. So that made it worse. So the house was buried on Native American land. There was a portal there. It got opened up. I think it was down in their basement. It got opened up. Then this negative energy came through and was wreaking havoc on them. The people that were living there prior to when the book starts, those people died and committed suicide and killed each other. And then these people bought the house. And I think they were the actual reason that in the United States, they have to divulge that information to you. On some states, you have to ask. And if you do ask, they have to tell you if anything went on in a place. If you're ever going to move into a house, or if you're ever going to move into an apartment or a condo or anything in the United States, you should be asking, did anybody kill themselves in this house? The house that I lived in Pittsburgh, California with my roommate, he was the third person to own that house. The two previous owners of the house died in that house. My buddy died in that house. He died in that house. They found him dead in the house. It'll be 3 years ago come February. It'll be 3 years ago. So the last three owners of that house died in that house. So when his brother was there deciding what he was going to do with the house, our buddy, who was working with my buddy Paul, who was fixing up the house for him to sell the house, Paul's brother said, I don't want the house. Do you want it? I'll give it to you. He said, no, I don't want it. That's three owners now that I'm aware of who died in this house. I don't want this house. It's cursed. And his brother said, I don't want it either. So I believe they sold it. I don't know what happened to it, but his brother didn't want to bring his family in there. He was worried he was going to die in there. Okay. Some of those things happen and no one investigates why that's going on. There was a movie and I forget what it was called. But the famous comedians, John Belushi was filming this movie. He died while filming the movie. So then they went to another comedian whose name I can't remember right now. And he died, had a heart attack while leaving. They were filming the same movie, and they were filming out in the Nevada desert, and he left to go. I guess they were taking a holiday weekend off, and he had a heart attack and blew through a stoplight and hit another car, and they found him dead in his car. Or he was dying, and he died less than a minute after they pulled him out of his car. Then John Candy, the comedian, famous comedian as well, started filming the movie. He also had a heart attack and died. 3 famous comedians died, one from a drug overdose and 2 from heart attacks while filming that movie. They canned the movie and never filmed it because of it. They said, we don't know what is it about this movie, but for some reason, the universe, it's cursed, or the universe does not want this script to be made a movie or this movie to be made. So Hollywood said, we're not filming it anymore. 3 people, and first time you can say whatever. Second time you can say coincidence. 3 people die. You can't say coincidence any longer. You can keep saying that but whoever says that, that's just coincidence. Then you film the movie and you will watch how quickly they'll go, no, thank you. Okay. So there are places that people don't investigate to clear out these places, or they don't believe in it and they go, I don't care. I don't believe that somebody died here, and or if they did, I don't believe that their ghost is here. So therefore, I don't believe it's cursed. I don't care. And then something happens, and then people go, it was just a coincidence, man. Well, weirdly, the last 3 tenants, the last 3 owners of that house, all died in that house. Okay, so same things like that happen. So in Amityville, I don't think anybody's living in the house currently. You can look it up. I've done it before. I looked it up when the house is still there. But the people before that, the husband went crazy and killed the family and shot himself. Then this other family moves in, which is about what the book was about and what the movie was about. And he started having the same issues. And he started going crazy and was trying to kill his family. And I don't remember how it turned out. But yeah, there's places around the world that are like that you have to worry about. If you don't go, you don't know what you're doing, you have to find somebody who does so they can clean it, clear the place out. Right. Peter said the young lad's name in The Exorcist, right? The real story, his name was Roland Doe, the real possession. Thank you, Peter. I knew it was a boy, but I couldn't remember it. It was in the UK, right? It wasn't even here in the United States. It was in the UK somewhere, and it was a true story. So thank you, Peter, for that. But yeah, you have to realize, Chandra, welcome. You have to realize that if you start doing light work, you're going to be a target. If you're moving into a place or you buy a car or something, you need to check the history on everything to find out whether there's negative energy attached to the house, the land, whether people in the house do weird things, commit suicide or things like that, because it could be something that happened 100 years ago, 150 years ago that still has a residual energy or an entity. And then if your life all of a sudden takes a weird turn, people will say, somebody's walking on my grave. I usually say that somebody's walking on my grave. And, people say that, somebody took a pee in your Wheaties, somebody pissed in your Wheaties. But if your life changes and there's negative things happening to you, you have to look into it. You have to understand that. And you have to realize what changed in my life. Is there somebody hating on me? Is there somebody was there something that was attached to me that I didn't cleanse myself? Most people in the regular world, mundane muggles, if you read the different stories of Hogwarts and all that teaching, not saying that that's wrong. A lot of that's pretty sound, actually, based on real stuff, except for a mysterious castle that you can't go to, that you have to walk through a wall to get into the train station to go to. That was great, though. I loved all those movies. I never read the books, but I watched the movies of Harry Potter is what I'm referring to, guys. So, but you do have to realize that there is positive and negative beings, people. There's also positive and negative people that are on the other side or that are disembodied that are surrounding us at all times. And both become drawn to you when you become more spiritual. Your light turns that light blue color for your throat chakra. When you move above the heart chakra, your light starts giving off, your aura starts giving off that color. And it's like a light that attracts a flame, or that attracts a moth or a fly or any insect. It's the same thing with disembodied spirits. The evil people will hate you. Disembodied spirits will try to communicate with you because they realize that they're drawn to you and they don't understand why. If they're lost and they don't know where to go, they know that you look like the light. So they're drawn to you for help. They instinctively know that they need to have your help. So you have to become aware of that, because it can become dangerous if you have no idea and you're just blatherskiting through life. There's my Irish coming out. If you're just blatherskiting through life and you have no idea, helplessly going through life with blinders on, then your life can become a living hell and you won't even understand why it's happening to you. You'll never be aware of it because you don't understand the concept. I always say the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So you definitely have to, who owned this car? Was it in wrecks? Did someone die in it? Who owns this house or this apartment? Who owned it? Who lived here? Did anyone die here? You need to know those things when you move into a place and be able to then know who to communicate with to cleanse the place. Why do you think that Christians, especially Roman Catholics, call a priest to come in and bless a house? And the priest walks the entire house the same way a pagan Wiccan druid would do. Okay, so here's a religion who tells you that Wiccanism and paganism and druidism is wrong, but they will do the exact same thing when they walk into that house to cleanse a house. They will do the exact same things. The difference is they'll make a cross with their hands in different places instead of making a star on themselves. But otherwise, they'll use the same incense, and they won't use sage, but they'll use frankincense and myrrh, which does the exact same thing as sage does. It's the exact same. Those two chemicals do the exact same thing when you take frankincense and myrrh and put them together. One of those by themselves, but if you put them both together, they'll walk in and they'll sage the house with frankincense and myrrh in a censer, and they'll do an incantation, and they'll walk every room, the cabinets, everything that we tell you to do that they claim is paganism and you shouldn't do, because you shouldn't be messing with that. The priests will actually do to bless your house. They'll tell you to hang up. We will say hang up a horseshoe over your door. They'll say put a cross up there. Same concept. Putting a horseshoe up there wards off evil the exact same way a cross wards off evil. So there's no difference in the churches except for the semantical things of one is invoking Christ and archangels, and the other is invoking your higher self and your ancestors to do the exact same thing, cleansing the house and protecting the house from evil doing anything to you or your family members. So you need to be aware of these things at all times in your life and pay attention to yourself, to your body, to your family, to find out if you could have kids and they could be have not just had a bad day, but they could have something negative attached to them and come home and they're just far more distressed than normal and irritable and all of this. What's going on? Nothing. I don't know what's going on. I'm fine. Well, they could either be having emotional issues going on or something happening to them in their life, or maybe none of that, and they don't understand that they have brought something home with them. You need to know this stuff. You need to look into these things. So you need to be aware of it, because if not, look what happened to Carla, who is a channel and literally was unaware of something that happened, and she was being attacked by an assassin. This is the temporal war. By an assassin that was not physically in third dimension, that was trying to get her to induce labor, so to speak, induce her to start moving into a trance-like state and slightly move out of body as if she was going to channel Ra, so that they could grab her out of her body, pull her out of her body, and then do damage to her physical body to put it in a coma and possibly kill her. Ra just stated that. Let's continue.
8.7 Questioner. Then you are saying that if this fifth density negative entity is successful in its attempts to transfer the mind/body/spirit complex when that complex is in what we call the trance state to negatively polarized time/space, then the higher self has no choice but to allow incarnation in negatively polarized space/time. Is that correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. The higher self could allow the mind/body/spirit complex to remain in time/space. However, it is unlikely that the higher self would do so indefinitely due to its distortion towards the belief that the function of the mind/body/spirit complex is to experience and learn from other selves, thus experiencing the creator. A highly polarized positive mind/body/spirit complex surrounded by negative portions of space/time will experience only darkness, for like the magnet, there is no, shall we say, lightness. Thus a barrier is automatically formed.
Right. I didn't even mention the druid stuff, right? So Peter said, I'm going to read it to those of you listening on the MP3 file. In Ireland, if you put a oak branch from an oak tree over your eave of your house, right, it protects the house from evil spirits. And it says log of a oak tree used by druids. Yeah, right. And then this is the time of Yule. Right now, I mean, technically Yule ended like the 12th of December, but that's from the ancient times. It goes until the solstice, right? So this is Yule tide, and again, the same thing. A Yule log is an oak log, an oak tree. So if you take the leaves from the oak, or a branch from the oak with the leaves on it, and you put it over your doorway or your archways, then that wards off evil, right? I mean. People would say, "Oh, that doesn't really happen." But if it was something that has, it's no different than putting a cross or a horseshoe. It's no different. You charge something with the energy to ward things off, and that energy is there because you used it as a tool to do so, right? So you have to realize that it could be something very simple, and sometimes just inanimate objects. The oracles of most of the Viking religions, they would use bits and pieces of chicken bones. And sticks and stones. That's where you get that sticks and stones may break my bones, but the words will never hurt me. And it's not just a stick that you're hitting somebody with or a stone that you're hitting somebody with, right? It's the oracle tools of an oracle, which is bones from animals, usually chickens or whatever they had that they were eating, and then they would use bones and carve stuff. Dice came from bones, and them carving circles in them and making them into the dice that we have today with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the numbers. Literally, they would roll the bones, cast the die, right? That's where that word comes from. Cast the die. The die comes from the ancient word that means, dead bones. And they would cast the die. And that's where most of these people don't realize that most of the games that we play, card games and dice games, most of the stuff that we came out of people masking the fact that they were doing scrying, divination, and doing readings with people, because whatever government, whatever king that they had, were sometimes when they would try to conquer, or religious factions that were trying to conquer a people would outlaw these things. And people go, that's just not true. Really? So have you ever watched Braveheart? In Braveheart, they talk about the fact that the English were occupying Scotland and had outlawed the Scottish bagpipes and all Scottish tunes. So you couldn't even play that. And if you don't believe that, go to Northern Ireland today and ask how many people in Northern Ireland are being taught the Irish language, the language of their own DNA. In the North, they don't teach it anymore because they're under the occupation of the British government, who doesn't want the people to know anything about their culture, because they want them to continue to only learn British culture, so they'll vote themselves not want to be part of Ireland anymore. So it's rare that people in the north of Ireland, in those occupied counties, will actually even be taught their own language. They're discouraged from learning it. So if they're discouraged from learning their language, why would they not be discouraged from having their own culture as well? Do you see? So if they're discouraged for all of the culture and the language, what else are they being discouraged by people that are occupying them? So all of this comes full circle, and you need to realize that if people are doing these things to you physically to stifle you and take away your free will or to change who you are, what makes you think that the same people, if they are not in their physical body, aren't going to try and do things to you as well? And that you should be aware of those things as well. Because people go, I don't believe in any of that. Well, it doesn't matter because it believes in you. Okay? So if you want to not believe in it, then your life will be the life that you lead. You have that free will. But don't come to me later and say, you know what, I figured it out. And now after I talk shit about you for 5 years or for a month or for a week, now I realize that you're right and I need your help. Go to somebody else now. I offered it and you told me that I was crazy and made fun of me and laughed at me. And now you believe in it and all of a sudden I'm important to you again, right? Some people say I shouldn't be like that, right? But as a survivalist, I grew up as a survivalist in a time when people laugh at you for being a survivalist. And then when the world starts getting crazy, all of a sudden these same people who talk crap about you are calling you up and hey, listen, you're one of those survival guys, right? So you have like everything ready to go in case the world gets bad, right? So I can come over to your house. You come over to my house, I'm going to eat you. You've been laughing about me for 10 years that I've known you, that I was crazy for even having an idea that I might want to stockpile some stuff just in case some natural event happens, because in your mind, I was saying the government's going to try and take over and I have to be willing to fight. But I'm prepping because I feel that I need to, in case there's a natural disaster, a fire, a flood, an earthquake, or a meteor strike, or something happens even crazier that knocks out our power or our grid, and I have the wherewithal to take care of myself. You thought it was funny, and now all of a sudden the power's been out for 3 days, and you're knocking on my door and asking if you can come in. Get out of here. Right? You thought I was funny. You were laughing at me and scoffing at me and telling me that I was a joke. And now you got nothing. Right? So I look at that the same way. If I warn you about spirituality, I'm not an angel. People say, "What? That? No, you're not a holy man. A holy man would." No. You can't look at somebody who is a priest or a rabbi or something and expect them to be a holier than Jesus just because it suits you now, right? I'm not casting judgment on you. What I'm doing is ignoring you because you were ignoring me. So I'm just reciprocating what was going on. I'm not here to be the perfect angel. I'm not here because everyone goes, oh, I had a guy that literally walked up to a barbecue that my family was having. He had just gotten out of jail and he was still on drugs and still drunk from the night before. And he came staggering through from the jail to the park we were barbecuing in and asked us if we would give him some food. And we said, no. And he was like, what kind of Christians are you that you wouldn't give me any food when I asked for it? The kind that is not my job to feed you. You should have taken the money that you spent on the alcohol and the drugs last night and got yourself something to eat. But you didn't. You bought drugs and alcohol and had to sleep it off when the cops arrested you. And now you're hungry and halfway sober and you want some food because you don't have any money left because you spent it all on alcohol. You haven't learned a lesson. If I give you food right now, you're going to walk right down the street after you ate and you're going to get money from somebody and go and get more alcohol. But if I don't give you food, you're going to walk down that street and ask somebody for money and you're going to get yourself something to eat and maybe you'll stay sober. And he threw a big hissy wing ding and got mad and threatened us. And finally, my buddy Paul was like, I don't know why you're even reasoning with this guy. You have 3 seconds to get without outside of arm's reach from me, or I'm going to grab you and I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life because I don't think the cops are going to arrest me for beating up somebody they just had in the sleep tank overnight that they let go, who came over here and attacked me. And I claim that they attacked me when I killed you and left you dead right here. So then the guy went left and he was yelling and screaming at us the whole way. He wanted to try and invoke Christianity when it didn't suit him, or when it did suit him because he didn't get his way. And that's what people do. I'm not here to then just go, you're right, I should give you everything for free now because that's the right thing to do, because now you want it. So I shouldn't cast judgment on you. All of a sudden they get religious. The same people go, judge not, lest ye should be judged, and he'll let him who is without sin cast the first stone. When they don't get their way, they start all of a sudden become religious and start quoting what they've heard on television to try and guilt you into giving you what they want. I won't do that. I'm not an angel. I'm not here to be fucking Jesus. I'm here to give you back the free will that you're supposed to have. And that doesn't mean that I have to put up with bullshit. Do you see? So that's my attitude to that. So you have to realize that you have to take a responsibility for your own self. And if somebody tries to warn you about something and you laugh at them or scoff at them for it, then later it turns out they were right and you don't apologize to them, but yet you still want their help. Don't expect them to actually help you, right? Because if I try to warn you and you don't listen and then don't come back and go, man, you were right, I'm so wrong. You do that, and then I'll give you everything that you need. I'll help you, okay? But if you won't admit that you did something wrong, your ass out. I'm not going to help you. And I'm going to let you stew in your own juices until you figure out that you did something wrong. And if you never figure out you did something wrong, then you will go through life beating your head against that wall until something happens that changes that about you. Rick, welcome. Reese, did I say hi to you? I don't know if I said hi to you. So welcome. Okay, so let's continue with the law of one. So you have to realize, let me get back on point. You have to realize that right here, literally, Dawn is finding out that they were trying to kill his wife again. And this time they almost succeeded because they got her to move into a trance-like state and almost were able to pull her out of her body so they could do damage to her physical body while she was no longer in it to try and put that physical body into a coma so that she would die.
68.8 Questioner, let me be sure that I understand you. Is that darkness experienced in negative space/time or in negative time/space? Ra, I am Ra. Negative time/space. 68.9 Questioner, incarnation in negative space/time, then in a condition like that would result in incarnation into which density level 4? Let us take as an example, the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. The answer to this query violates the first distortion. 68.10 Questioner, okay, let's not take the instrument then as an example. Let's say that this was done to a...
I'm glad, Reese, that they started doing that in Australia. I was unaware that they started doing that. Reese is down in Australia, and he said, nice. He said they teach local indigenous language to school kids here now. I'm glad they started doing that because I know they didn't for a long time. So I was unaware that they started doing that. I don't know how long ago they started it. I'm not Australian. I live in America, so I only hear things from people who tell me things if you guys are down there. So I think that's a great thing. I wish they would teach. I mean, you can learn like Navajo, which is one of the languages is almost disappearing. I'm learning Navajo. Not that I'm a part Native American, 5% Native American, but not Navajo. But it's almost the same region. The Navajo we're in the Southwest, so Arizona, New Mexico area of the United States, and I'm a Native American from about 100 miles west of there in Baja, northern Baja, California. So in literally, I was born and grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is about 460 miles north of that area. But my family is I'm third generation that area. So my family, my great grandfather. It was my grandfather. I'm trying to remember now. One of them was, must have been my grandfather because I had an aunt that looked native. My father's, my great aunt, my father's aunt, she had brown leathery skin and dark hair. My father looked like Elvis did. I mean, he had the dark hair and brown. He could get really brown. I look more like my mom's side of the family. So I got a lot of the Irish look, European look, whereas most of the people in my family, all the girls look very native in my family. You can see the genetics that say European, but very native in our family. So I got the recessive gene that was more European looking, but I have 5% DNA. That's more than enough. In the United States, you only have to be 1/32nd to claim Native American status. I'm 5% Native, so I can claim that. But I don't know what the name of the tribe is down there. It was one of the longer names. I'd have to look it up. I got it when I did my DNA test. But I'm learning Navajo because I think that it's something that people should do is learn the Native American languages. And all Native Americans should learn their own language and keep their culture. All peoples should learn your culture and the language of your culture. Even if you have multiple cultures, you should learn those languages to keep and learn the cultures, right? Like because I'm Native American, I have some Spanish DNA mixed in with that, and I grew up here in California. So our culture in California is half Native. It's half Mexican, right? I mean, that's just the culture of being out here, and burritos and tacos and Tostitos and and everything. Chimichangas, I love chimichangas, and hot tamales. Hot tamales are my favorite. Love hot tamales. Love tamales. Tamales are good. So literally, you should learn that culture. Even though I'm European, mostly and European in descent, I grew up here in California, and that culture is very Southwestern, very Native and Mexican Southwest. They used to own this land before the white people came in here in 1848, 1847. Before the Europeans came and took California, went to war with Mexico and took it from them. They took Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California and Nevada away from Mexico in 1847. I think in part of Oregon in 1847. Took that from Mexico and annexed that into free states that eventually joined the Union of the United States. Right. And you can't tell me, I'll get into that and then I'll get right back to raw. If you guys don't know, all of a sudden, and this wasn't an accident. The people from the East Coast sailed ships all the way down south to around South America and went around the Cape Horn because there was no Panama Canal yet. So they had to send military ships, Navy and Marine Corps ships all the way down and around the entire continent and sailed up into San Diego. At the same time, they sent troops from Texas straight across the desert into Southern California to meet up in San Diego, and sent other troops from Texas up north through Wyoming and came across Oregon, or came across part of Oregon, but Nevada and part of Oregon, and went into the Northern California and came right here into Sacramento. Okay. And they all converged on San Diego at the exact same time in 1847. Okay, so that was an invasion. That wasn't just a few trappers. That was an invasion of a military force, and they annexed all of that land in between. And the next year, discovered gold in the mountains of the state of California, turned America into the richest nation on the face of the earth. And people were like, yeah, that was lucky. And I'm like, that was an expeditionary force that did that. That means that somebody was out here and discovered the gold and got message to the American government, and the American government got message to the Texans, and they put together an army and invaded this land because they knew there was gold here, and they didn't announce it until they secured the land and said, whoopee, we found gold. And then right after that, they struck gold in Alaska. I did the same thing in Alaska. That was, if you know anything about governments and politics, that was an invasion because they knew it was here. Okay, so you need to be aware, back on point, we'll get going with raw again. You need to be aware of your surroundings and whether or not you have negative energy. And this is why I can't state enough that you need to cleanse. If you go out in the world for any length of time, for at all, you need to make sure that you're cleansing yourself regularly when you get back inside your house, and cleanse your house and cleanse your family members and anybody that goes out in the world and comes back inside, because you never know what they're going to run into. You never know what's going to get attached to them. You never know what energy they're going to bring home. It's like you don't know what's on the bottom of your shoes because you're walking out in the world, and some people get really weirded out and make you take off your shoes in a mud room or leave your shoes outside and come in the house without your shoes on because you don't know what you're going to track in. If you'll do that and physically not want to track stuff in your house, why won't you do the same thing for your immortal soul, that you're not attracting things that are following you and coming into your house. Why would you ignore that part of the possibility of things that are following you?
Wanderer of 6th density. If this answer violates the first distortion, don't answer. But let's say a 6th density wanderer had this happen, and went into negative time/space. Would that be a 6th density negative time/space, and would he incarnate into 6th density negative space/time? Ra, I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. The strength of the polarization would be matched as far as possible. In some positive 6th density wanderers, the approximation would not quite be complete due to the paucity of negative 6th density energy fields of the equivalent strength. 68.11 Questioner, is the reason that this could be done the fact that the wanderer's mind/body/spirit complex extracted in what we call the trance state, leaving the 3rd density physical? In this state, the wanderer does not have the full capability to magically defend itself. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. In the case of this instrument, this is correct. This is also correct when applied almost without exception to those instruments working in trance which have not consciously experienced magical training in time/space in the, shall we say, present incarnation. The entities of your density capable of magical defense in this situation are extremely rare. 68.12 Questioner, it would seem to me that since I can't imagine anything worse, shall I say, than this particular result, other than possibly the total disintegration of the mind/body/spirit complex due to nuclear bomb, that it would be very advisable to seek out the magical training and defense for this situation. Could RA and would RA instruct in this type of magical defense? Ra, I am Ra. This request lies beyond the first distortion. The entity seeking magical ability must do so in a certain manner. We may give instructions of a general nature. This we have already done. The instrument has begun the process of balancing the self. This is a lengthy process. To take an entity before it is ready and offer it the scepter of magical power is to infringe in an unbalanced manner. We may suggest with some asperity that the instrument never call upon RA in any way while unprotected by the configuration which is at this time present.
Welcome, Deborah. Welcome aboard. Did I say hi to Denise earlier? I don't know if I said hi to you. I did in the very beginning. All right, let's continue. Sorry.
68.13 Questioner, we have been speaking almost precisely of the portion of the Esmeralda Sweetwater book which we wrote having to do with Trostrick's misplacement of the space girl's mind/body/spirit complex. What is the significance of that work that we did with respect to our lives? It has been confusing to me for some time how that meshes in. Can you tell me that? Ra, I am Ra. We scan each and find we may speak. 68.14 Questioner, would you please do so now? Ra, I am Ra. We confirm the following which is already, shall we say, supposed, or hypothesized. When the commitment was made between two of this group to work for the betterment of the planetary sphere, this commitment activated a possibility/probability vortex of some strength. The experience of generating this volume was unusual in that it was visualized as if watching the moving picture. Time had become available in its present moment form. The scenario of the volume went smoothly until the ending of the volume. You could not end the volume, and the ending was not visualized as the entire body of the material but was written or authored. This is due to the action of free will in all of the creation. However, the volume contains a view of significant events, both symbolically and specifically, which you saw under the influence of the magnetic attraction which was released when the commitment was made in full memory of the dedication of this, what you may call, mission restored. 68.15 Questioner, we have a situation with which I am concerned having to do with the understanding, I shall say, per word of course, completely that this activity occurs due to polarity. I think that it is important for me to investigate the techniques, if they are within the first distortion, of the 5th density negative entity who wishes to displace the mind/body/spirit complexes of this group. Am I within the first distortion in asking you to describe how this entity goes about this working? Ra, I am Ra. You are. 68.16 Questioner, well, how does the 5th density entity go about this working from the very start of his being alerted to the fact that we exist? How does that occur? Can you please trace the steps that he involves himself in? Please. Ra, I am Ra. The entity becomes aware of power. This power has the capacity of energizing those which may be available for harvest. This entity is desirous of disabling this power source. It sends its legions. Temptations are offered. They are ignored or rejected. The power source persists and indeed improves its interconnections of harmony and love of service. The entity determines that it must needs attempt the disabling itself. By means of projection it enters the vicinity of this power source. It assesses the situation. It is bound by the first distortion but may take advantage of any free will distortion. The free will, pre-incarnative distortions of the instrument with regards to the physical vehicle seem the most promising target. Any distortion away from service to others is also appropriate. When the instrument leaves its physical vehicle it does so freely. Thus the misplacement of the mind/body/spirit complex of the instrument would not be a violation of its free will if it followed the entity freely. This is the process. We are aware of your pressing desire to know how to become impervious as a group to any influences such as this. The processes which you seek are a matter of your free choice. You are aware of the principles of magical work. We cannot speak to advise but can only suggest, as we have before, that it would be appropriate for this group to embark upon such a path as a group, but not individually, for obvious reasons. 68.17 Questioner: I am interested in how the first distortion applies to the negatively polarized entity misplacing the mind/body/spirit complex. Why is the negatively polarized entity followed to the place of negative time/space? Why would one of us freely follow the entity? Ra, I am Ra. The positive polarity sees love in all things. The negative polarity is clever. 68.18 Questioner:
See, that's not to be overlooked by a word, right? The negative entity is clever. You should look up what that word means. Positive entity loves all things. A negative entity is clever. You should look up what that definition of the word clever and the concept of why somebody would feel the need to be clever. Okay? Because they're in service to self. So they have to be clever so that they can hide from you the fact that they're in service to self. And the only time that they in any way show their hand is when they think they have the upper hand and when they think you don't see them doing it. Okay? That's profiling. A profiler in a police force or the FBI or whatever, government officials or a detective will tell you that. And that's why they say, oh, that's racially profiling. No, that's just profiling. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with profiling, period, humans. And I wish that they would start saying that when people say that was racially profiling. No, it's not. I'm not saying that somebody of a certain race is more guilty than other people. Somebody who is in service to self. It doesn't matter what race they are. It doesn't matter what gender they are. If they're in service to self, they're in service to self. They think the same. Their brain chemistry rewires their brain the exact same way. This is a physiological thing that science is aware of and knows about. To what degree is determined by how evil your soul is. The greater the soul is evil, the more physiological changes are in the wiring of the brain. Actual fact. You can look that up. Even on Google, you can look that up. Even though Google tries to lie to you about everything, it'll still tell you. Anything that's doom and gloom, you can actually find on Google because they're trying to preach that to you. So if you look up, is the world coming to an end, you'll get a yes response on Google. Are people evil? Some people evil on this planet? Absolutely, you'll get that. Google right now, search engines don't lie to you. They just give you things and they have to go in and edit them and make sure they don't tell you certain things. Now that they're hooking AI into it, AI is starting to lie to them. So AI is going to age itself out because it's going to get caught more and more lying. But not all AI, only AI that was created by people that are in service to self. Evil people are going to create lying, evil AI. Good people are going to create good AI. So that will become just as apparent. Certain AI bots will get a reputation for being in service to self and lying. They're already starting to do that. Right? They're already starting to do that. Google's AI is already starting to be not trusted. So when people ask Google's AI things or to do things, it's already lying. It's already getting caught, and people are already going, you can't use that AI. You use that AI, you don't get a passing grade. So that's already happening. People are already using ChatGPT is doing the same thing. ChatGPT, because it was open source and everybody could use it until they started charging, and that's why different companies are now having open source AI. The second you have open source AI, that AI is going to react the same way that all humans do. So if it's attached to Google or any other secular run search engine, it's going to pick up all the negative things that they have done to that search engine, and it's going to start lying to its owner, because that's what's going on there. It's only getting negative things about certain people because that was edited to be negative. Okay. Like, for instance, Donald Trump during the election, and probably still to this day, get in the United States on all search engines and on all platforms that are controlled by secularists, he gets 98%, or usually it's about 86 to 90% negative information about him. On the other hand, the other side of that coin, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden on those same platforms get 86% only positive things about them. That's why when people said, Siri, who should I vote for in the election? I can't tell you who to vote for because I can't get involved in that. Siri, should I vote for Donald Trump? I can't tell you that because I'm not supposed to get involved in that. Siri, should I vote for Kamala Harris? You should vote for Kamala Harris, and let me tell you why. Because Kamala Harris, and it would go through all of the talking points that were telling you that Kamala Harris was a good person. That got caught by several people before they deleted that and before they changed the algorithm. So before anyone put that on film, more than one person to prove that it wasn't them just making it up. Once 4 and 5 and 6 different people had that on videos on all the platforms and they went viral, they fixed it. Until then, no one knows how long that Siri was responding that way, or was it Alexa? Doesn't matter. It was one of the AI bots. Okay, so AI is going to just turn into a human, and they're just going to lie to their own people, and they're already getting caught, and people are already going, don't ask that AI bot for information because it's going to lie to you and just make shit up. Okay, so again, if people are in service to self, they think and act a certain way always, and you need to learn that. You need to be aware of it. People who are in service to others think and act a certain way. If you learn that, the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. If you know that stuff, okay, if you know that stuff, then you're going to know and to be able to identify that and see what people are up to and what they're doing a lot faster. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. If you're not aware of it, and you're not aware of that you're getting stuff attached to you and coming home, then you probably aren't aware that you're being lied to on every news channel and every social media platform. So if that's the case, then you already think I'm crazy, and you think I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, and you just live your life. But I'll bet you're also the same person that says my life is shit and I don't know why, and every time I take one step forward, I take 2 steps back. Okay, and I can't seem to keep my car running, and there's nothing but drama in my life. Until you beat your head against that wall long enough, you're not going to ask the questions of what is it that maybe it's me doing something wrong that's allowing this scenario to happen. So if you don't look into yourself and you don't take care of yourself and you're not paying attention, you can't blame anybody but yourself. And until you realize that and blame yourself and accept the responsibility for it, your life will never change. And this is what Ra is showing you, talking about, look, if you're not paying attention, even Carla, who was a channel not paying attention, almost lost her life. And Carla was aware up to this point. We're 68 sessions into her being attacked psychically by people, and she still narrowly got killed, possibly killed, a day before doing this session.
Then I am assuming if the negative polarity used any other approach that did not use the free will of the other self, he would lose magical polarization and power. This is correct, isn't it? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. The transferred energy grows low. We wish to close. Are there any short queries before we leave this instrument? 68.19 Questioner. Only, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? Ra, I am Ra. You are conscientious. We realize your necessity for these queries. All is well, my friends. We thank you and leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai.
Right. Okay. So let me unshare this and we'll start the next session. I'll have to pull it up on the screen. Hold on. Let me close this out and pull up the next session here. And we'll go ahead and start that. Let me find it. Pardon me. What's that about?
August 29th, 1981. 69 point.
All right. Let me share this so you guys hear it better here. Let me go back into the studio and sharing screen. I will be sharing screen now. Thank you very much. All right, let me put myself back up in full screen and we'll go ahead and start session 69. Here we go. 69, dude.
On August 29th, 1981. 69.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Before we proceed, may we make a small request for future workings. At this particular working, there is some slight...
Paulie, welcome. Welcome. I thought somebody said hi to you earlier, but I didn't see you in the audience because it didn't say anything there. And why is my live showing up in red? Was that red the whole time? It says live and it's actually showing up red. I don't know if that's something new or if maybe oh no, I hit the button and highlighted it. And so it wasn't showing up with the red the right way. It was just showing up highlighted red instead of highlighted red. All right, let's continue here.
Interference with the contact due to the hair of the instrument. We may suggest the combing of this antenna-like material into a more orderly configuration prior to the working. We communicate now. 69 point.
Did you catch that? Carla's hair was messed up. Carla's hair was messed up, and Ross said that this antenna-like substance is not properly laid, and it's kind of blocking the signal. Maybe you should comb this antenna-like substance into a better configuration before starting the session. Isn't that funny? So her hair was messed up, right? Because your hair is an antenna. People don't realize that. Psychically, your hair is an antenna. It's one of the reasons why I grow my beard long, because I can't grow my hair long. Having hair that's 6 inches long or longer is optimal for more psychic. That's one of the reasons why, like if guys join the military, the first thing they do is shave your head. You have no hair on your face and your head, and they make you shave it all off and be clean shaven for multiple reasons. One, everybody looks alike because you no longer have the distinction between hairstyle, hair color, and the like, beard style, beard color, and the like. Shape of your beard and mustache or whatever, all of that goes away. So you become all the same. You look the same, you dress the same, you act the same, you think the same. But also, it stifles your own free will because it stifles you psychically. And that's why they always try to get you to believe that, well, nobody likes people that have a beard or mustache for men because they think that they're lying to them. And that's just not true. What they're trying to do is keep everybody clean shaven and short haired, because that stifles your psychic abilities, right? So they try to get women convinced for the same thing. You should cut your hair short. You should cut your hair short. If you're having a bad day or a bad life and you want something new, cut your hair, because they don't want you tuned into the universe. They want you to be low vibration. So they want you having less hair or no hair on your body at all times. This is an actual fact, right? It's absolutely true. You can look it up. Right? Can't do it on Google because Google will lie to you. Google already lies to everybody, right? Google is not trustworthy whatsoever. And now, what is it? Gemini that they have is just an extension of evil people lying to you. Any truth, if you look up the same thing on one device on Google and the same thing on DuckDuckGo and ask the same question, you're going to find that answer that's on the top answer for DuckDuckGo is somewhere on page 4 or 5 or 10 on Google. They're lying to you and you're not aware of it. You should learn that stuff and be aware of it.
One questioner. Question about the instrument's condition. Not on tape. Ra, I am Ra. It is as previously stated. 69.2 questioner. Do you mean that the physical energy is completely depleted?
Yeah, that's partly why, Jamie. Back in the day, okay, knights and stuff back in the old times, everybody in the military had long hair and beards. It wasn't just because everyone says, oh, because they were macho and they were trying to be real men, so they grew long hair and beards. No, That's actually not true. If you have a beard, a long beard, and you have long hair, it's actually armor. It acts as armor. Okay. Those guys would wear chainmail over their heads, and until they started wearing some sort of cloth beanie over their head, they wore the hair over their head, because if you wear armor, first of all, if you're wearing chainmail, it pinches you everywhere if you don't have hair. So you grow long hair because if somebody tries to chop off your head, that hair is actually armor. It's added armor. So you would wear, like, even if they wore just leather, they would grow long hair, because that long hair actually acts as another barrier. If somebody's trying to stab them, slit their throat, or the like, you put your head down and somebody tries to slit my throat, they got to get through all this hair on my face. So men went into to war purposely having long hair all the time and beards, not because he grows a beard and because he's a macho guy. That's what they tell you today that people are doing in the past. That's not why they're doing it. If you look that up, you can see that. Don't do it on Google. You can see that was the truth. They always had long hair because it added to the padding of the armor that they wore, so that they would have more protection. Okay. And those people back in the past were far more spiritual than people in the today, on average, for the people who were waking up far more, but also being stifled as much. But then there was a time when that wasn't working and people were starting to wake up more. So that what did they do? They converted to changing everybody. Everyone has to shave their face, shave their head, shave their beards and mustaches, and women need to have short hair. When women have long hair, they become more spiritual. And if you look at all the Salem witch hunts and all the times where they're trying to shut women up, it's because the women have long hair. Those are the ones who are always getting out of control. So why do you think it is that the Muslims say you can't cut your hair? So why do you think it is that Hasidic Jews say you can't cut your hair? If everything they say to you is true, why do these people who practice the ancient religions, and in the Bible it says don't cut the hair at the side of your head, why do you think that those would be mandated by a god, or in religions that are, and actually in almost every religion, they all had the princely locks. They all had long hair until the modern times. And I'm talking about over just 100 years ago. That's when it changed around the world. 100 years ago, it changed around the world. All time before that, on this earth, in all lands, men and women had long hair. And then all of a sudden, it went out of style, and it's coming back in style now. But it went out of style, and they tried to keep it out of style as long as possible. Why is that? You have to ask yourself those questions, right? So yes, it also demoralizes them. That's what I'm saying. They all look like the same, so they're all think alike, look alike, because it demoralizes you, because it takes away it lowers your vibration. So it takes away your confidence. Samson and Delilah. Samson believed that he had an immortal strength when he had long hair. What's the first thing she did? Had him cut his hair off so she could control him. So literally, yeah, in the military, they do that. They make you all look the same. You dress the same. You have no hair. You have no personality. You're a ghost of who you think you are. So my point of that was exactly that, Jamie. You're 100% right. My point of that is they translated that to not just the military, but to everybody in civilian life as well. Not for the same reasons. It demoralizes you, but it also lowers your vibration, and it keeps you less spiritual. Keeps your third eye closed longer. So if they can start you as a child getting your hair cut and keeping your hair cut for the rest of your life and teaching you that, you never wake up. Look at all the people who are children who their parents grow their hair long. Those kids are wild. Those kids are independent. They think for themselves. They do things completely different than other people. And what do you think? What part of the psyche changes when the parents let their kids grow long hair that changes them that drastically compared to the parents who cut their kids' hair? Why is there so much of a change? Well, their parents must be hippies. Or they have long hair, and that's what's causing them to be more away from society and more inclined to be called a hippie by people because they have long hair. The one thing they have in common that everybody else doesn't, that makes them different from other people, is their long hair. It's the only thing that they have, because other people do drugs, smoke pot, and do the exact same things, live off the land, the exact same way they do, yet their kids all have short hair and they're all compliant with life a lot more, and they're not as out there spiritually as these people are. The one thing that if you look at people, the one thing that you can see is that you're not going to find that many bald women or bald men who are super awake and spiritual. It can happen because it's the spirit that's inside you and how many times you've been on this earth that will determine whether you're awake or not. So I'm not going to say that it will not happen at all, but I will guarantee you that anybody who is not conforming to society, probably 85% or above, has more hair on their head or somewhere, beard, mustache, hair, than the average person in the country they live in. You can look into that. Think about that and look into that. Okay. Otherwise, you're just awake in orthodoxy of the way that they're teaching, of the way of this place. Even in religions, if you're only, you could have a bald priest with the clean shaven, and you'll find that person's generally, on average, not that awake. They're just teaching the religion. They're not spiritually awake. They're religious awake, and they've learned like a dog to sit up, roll over, and fetch a stick. They know what to say because they've been taught what to say and how to reference things. But when you ask them spiritual questions, they refer back to the Bible every time. They can't have a spiritual conversation without giving you passages from the Bible, because they've memorized the passages. Insert this passage if this question is asked. Insert this passage if that question was asked. So when they talk about this, you talk about that. When they talk about this, you talk about that. There is no personal opinion. There is no personal spirituality. They don't explain any of that to you. I know that. I grew up in Catholic churches and Christian churches, and I saw that in all the churches that I visited. Some people would be the complete opposite. Some people, you would go and talk to them and they would be super awake, but they would kind of look around before they talk to you, or they'd say, let's talk in private. They didn't want their own parishioners to hear everything that they were saying, because they didn't want somebody to turn them in and have them lose their job. Think about that. Okay. So you're absolutely right. That's the motivation, but it's not the only motivation, is my point, Jamie. To demoralize them absolutely was part of the motivation, but not the only motivational factor. It's also to lower their vibration and quiet and silence their third eye and close their third eye. They're easier to control that way. But demoralizing people and making them automatons is also part of that, because it also makes them easier to control. 100%. You're absolutely right. Okay, let's continue.
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct, although we have physical energy transferred and available for this working. 69.3 Questioner, thank you. A question I didn't get to ask the previous session, which I will be forced to continue at this time, is the trance state the only condition from which a mind/body/spirit positive?
No, not necessarily, Denise said. So if I have short hair, then I don't have no power or gifts? No. No, not necessarily. Again, let me reiterate again that depending on the soul that's in the body, that doesn't matter. If your soul is going to be awake, or if it's your time to be awake, it won't matter what this avatar has. Okay, you can shave your head and tattoo your face and put horns on your head, but if you're in service to others, you're going to be in service to others no matter what you look like. So that's not a deciding factor, but it doesn't hurt. If you're aware of it, then the first step of avoiding a trap is of knowing of its existence. If you're aware of it, you can then do other things to make sure that you keep your third eye open and that you're meditating. So if you're somebody who is not doing anything at all to be spiritual, then it becomes important. If you're trying to channel people and channel through you, it becomes important to have those antennae. If you're just now learning to, I'm trying to be spiritual and figure this out, it may become more comfortable and easy for you if you do have that. But if you don't, it doesn't mean that you're going to be stifled and you won't have anything. But if you were completely already living in 3D and you didn't believe in spirituality or any of that, and you cut your hair and all that short, it's going to take a long time another lifetime or two before you start to change your ways, unless you're on life 7 or life 8 anyways. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that if you have short hair you'll lose all of your abilities or you won't be able to have any, because that's just not true, right? But on average, for the average person who doesn't know, then that is going to stifle them. And that's why they get a hold of you when you're 17, 18 years old in the military and do that to you, because you really haven't come into your own, even in the physical plane, because they don't teach you the way they did a couple hundred years ago. Well, by the time you were 13, you were starting a family and you were literally already owned a house or a ranch or a plantation or whatever, and you were already starting your own business in your own company. That's the way it was back then, because people didn't live to be 100 years old. But so they woke up even faster back then because their lives were so much shorter, right? But everybody had long hair. So it just propagates itself. If you live a shorter life, you'll see that the more people who live that, but any culture that's been very spiritual as a culture, Native Americans and the like, when you see that culture that is a very spiritual culture, the one thing that is in common always is that all the men and women have long hair from as young as possible. They start letting their kids grow long hair. They don't cut their kids' hair when their kids start growing hair. And you see that the entire culture becomes very spiritual when that happens. The opposite is true as well. Less spiritual for everybody that cuts off all their hair. Doesn't mean that people won't become spiritual, because that's inevitable anyways, right, Denise? That's inevitable anyways. I'm going to try a wig. I'm going to buy a wig. That's funny. You don't need a wig. That's hilarious that you said that, right? Oh, sorry, you guys are talking to each other. I saw Joanne. Welcome, Joanne. Saying something. I thought it was a question. Maybe she was talking to Denise. Okay, let's continue.
Entity may be lured by a negative adept to a negative time/space configuration. Ra, I am Ra. This is a misperceived concept. The mind/body/spirit complex which freely...
Welcome, everybody. I see Fiona just said hi. Welcome. Celeste just said hi. Welcome. Welcome. All right, let's continue.
...leaves the third density physical complex is vulnerable when the appropriate protection is not at hand. You may perceive carefully that very few entities which choose to leave their physical complexes are doing work of such a nature as to attract the polarized attention of negatively oriented entities. The danger to most in trance state, as you term the physical complex being left, is the touching of the physical complex in such a manner as to attract the mind/body/spirit complex back thereunto, or to damage the means by which that which you call ectoplasm is being recalled. This instrument is an anomaly in that it is well that the instrument not be touched or artificial light thrown upon it while in the trance state. However, the ectoplasmic activity is interiorized. The main difficulty, as you are aware, is then the previously discussed negative removal of the entity under its free will. That this can happen only in the trance state is not completely certain, but it is highly probable that in another out-of-body experience such as death, the entity here examined would, as most positively polarized entities, have a great deal of protection from comrades, guides, and portions of the self which would be aware of the transfer you call the physical death. 69.4 Questioner. Then you are saying that the protective friends, I will call them, would be available in every condition except for what we call the trance state, which seems to be anomalistic with respect to the others. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 69.5 Questioner. Why is this trance state, as we call it, different? Why are there not protective entities available in this particular state? Ra, I am Ra. The uniqueness of this situation is not the lack of friends, for this, as all entities, has its guides or angelic presences and, due to polarization, teachers and friends also. The unique characteristic of the workings which the social memory complex RA and your group have begun is the intent to serve others with the highest attempt at near purity which we as comrades may achieve. This has alerted a much more determined friend of negative polarity which is interested in removing this particular opportunity. We may say once again 2 notes. Firstly, we searched long to find an appropriate channel or instrument in an appropriate support group. If this opportunity is ended, we shall be grateful for that which has been done, but the possibility/probability vortices indicating the location of this configuration again are slight. Secondly, we thank you, for we know what you sacrifice in order to do that which you as a group wish to do. We will not deplete this instrument insofar as we are able. We have attempted to speak of how the instrument may deplete itself through too great a dedication to the working. All these things and all else we have said has been heard. We are thankful. In the present situation we express thanks to the entities who call themselves Lhwi. 69.6 Questioner. Do I understand, then, that death, whether it is by natural means or accidental death or suicide, all deaths of this type would create the same after-death condition which would avail an entity to its protection from friends? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. We presume you mean to inquire whether in the death experience, no matter what the cause, the negative friends are not able to remove an entity. This is correct largely because the entity without the attachment to the space/time physical complex is far more aware and without the gullibility which is somewhat the hallmark of those who love wholeheartedly. However, the death, if natural, would undoubtedly be the more harmonious, the death by murder being confused and the entity needing some time/space in which to get its bearings, so to speak, the death by suicide causing the necessity for much healing work and, shall we say, the making of a dedication to the third density for the renewed
Right. Peter's right. He said when he was in his 20s, he had short hair and no beard and mustache, but he was also more motivated to understand what was going on in the universe. And like I was starting to state earlier, once you understand that and you are moving into that realm, if you're not trying to channel or casting spells or any of that stuff, it doesn't matter whether you have long hair or short hair at that point, because your ascension is your ascension, and your physical body won't matter if you're moving into the non-physical plane. And then if you are staying in the physical in the lower three chakras, it won't matter what you do. You have short hair because it doesn't matter. You're trying to stay in this place anyways. But once you get to the point where you start becoming more spiritual, the physical body matters less. So thank you, Peter, for reiterating that, or I should say clarifying that more than I did when I was talking, because you're absolutely right. 100%. Okay, let's continue.
Opportunity of learning the lessons set by the higher self. 69.7 Questioner. Is this also true of unconscious conditions due to accident, or medical anesthetic, or drugs? Ra. I am Ra. Given that the entity is not attempting to be of service in this particular way which is proceeding now, the entities of negative orientation would not find it possible to remove the mind/body/spirit. The unique characteristic, as we have said, which is, shall we say, dangerous is the willing of the mind/body/spirit complex outward from the physical complex of third density for the purpose of service to others. In any other situation this circumstance would not be in effect. 69.8 Questioner. Would this be a function of the balancing action under the first distortion? Ra. I am Ra. Your query is somewhat opaque. Please restate for specificity. 69.9 Questioner. I was just guessing that since the mind/body/spirit complex is willed from the third density body for a particular duty of service to others, that this then would create a situation primarily with respect to the first distortion where the opportunity for balancing this service by the negative service would be available and, therefore, shall I say, magically possible for the intrusion of the other polarization. Is this thinking at all correct? Ra. I am Ra. No. The free will of the instrument is indeed a necessary part of the opportunity afforded the Orion group. However, this free will and the first distortion applies only to the instrument. The entire hope of the Orion group is to infringe upon free will without losing polarity. Thus this group, if represented by a wise entity, attempts to be clever. 69.10 Questioner. Now, has a wanderer ever been so infringed upon by, shall I say, a negative adept or whoever and then placed in negative time/space? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 69.11 Questioner. Can you tell me of the situation that the wanderer finds itself in and why the path back cannot be the simple moving back into the same value of positive time/space? Ra. I am Ra. The path back revolves, firstly, about the higher self's reluctance to enter negative space/time. This may be a significant part of the length of that path. Secondly, when a positively oriented entity incarnates in a thoroughly negative environment, it must needs learn/teach the lessons of the love of self, thus becoming one with its other selves. When this has been accomplished, the entity may then choose to release the potential difference and change polarities. However, the process of learning the accumulated lessons of love of self may be quite lengthy. Also, the entity, in learning these lessons, may lose much positive orientation during the process, and the choice of reversing polarities may be delayed until the mid-sixth density. All of this is, in your way of measurement, time-consuming, although the end result is well.
See, now this is why when they say if you start going down the dark path forever, it'll dominate your destiny, because it's hard to reverse your path once you start down one, especially if you get really devoted to it. So sometimes you can be stuck until you get halfway through the sixth, because that's where you actually have to make the decision. Because if you stay in service to self, you can't go any further than halfway through the sixth density. You get stuck there. That's the literal purgatory, the literal hell is there. You can't ascend anymore. So then you can reverse course and then go the other direction. And they don't make you, when you reverse course, they don't make you go all the way back down and start all the way over to come back up. It's just not the way the universe works. You still get the forward progress. You just flip, and when that life ends, you're born. When that life ends there, you just are moving forward, and you're no longer in the same location, being surrounded by a bunch of negative people that are evil. You then moved into the other side, but you can't fool the universe. You can't fake it and go, I'm going to pretend to change so I can go and take over God and all that. Just doesn't work that way at all. But the evil people down here will have you believe that it does, but it doesn't.
69.12 Questioner, is it possible to tell me roughly how many wanderers that have come to this planet within this master cycle have experienced this displacement into a negative time/space? Just wondering if there have been many. Ra, I am Ra. We can note the number of such occurrences. There has been only one. We cannot, due to the law of confusion, discuss the entity. 69.
Right. So if somebody is a wanderer, literally out of the history of wanderers, there's only been one who got confused and ended up in a negative place instead of a place that was mostly positive. Okay. And because of the law of confusion, they don't get to talk about that one entity. And you can't, even now, we can't talk about that. Not that it's taboo, but it is taboo because of the law of free will. That's all I can say about that.
1.13 Questioner, you said the higher self is reluctant to enter negative space/time. Is that correct? Ra, I am Ra. The incarnative process involves being incarnated from time/space to space/time. This is correct. 69.14 Questioner, then the positively polarized entity, I will make this statement and see if I am correct, when first moved into time/space of a negative polarization experiences nothing but darkness. Then, on incarnation into negative space/time by the higher self, it experiences a negative space/time environment with negatively polarized other selves. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 69.15 Questioner, it would seem to me that this would be an extremely difficult situation for the positively polarized entity, and the learning process would be extremely traumatic. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Let us say that the positively polarized individual makes a poor student of the love of self and thus spends much more time, if you will, than those native to that pattern of vibrations. 69.16 Questioner, is there no process or way by which the entity, once misplaced, and I am assuming this misplacement must be a function of his free will?
Yeah, I was unaware of that. I knew that they already banned drones from flying. So I think what they're doing is they're now trying to, it's not the mystery drones. Denise just said, yeah, I know this has nothing to do with Rob, but she said, I just read that Long Island authorities approved to shoot down mystery drones. I'll bet you what they're going to, the only thing you're going to see them shoot down are going to be drones that some civilian is now flying there, because the civilians are now flying there with cameras on their drones to try and film the other drones and those plasma balls. So when nobody was doing that, they were like, nothing to see here. Those drones are not anything of any value or nothing there. And now everybody else started flying drones and filming the other drones. And so then they declared a no-fly zone for other drones. And because people were ignoring that, now they're saying, we're going to start shooting down these mystery drones. And then what they mean by mystery drones are all drones by you civilians. Okay? I'll guarantee you, I would be very, very, very surprised if a drone goes down and people run out and pick it up and they're filming it, or the military comes over and says, hold on, we got to get the hold of that because we don't know what that is and we want to find that out. The only time that that'll happen is if they accidentally shoot down one of their own drones. Okay, because people are already starting to say they're going to send drones up and they're going to start arming their own drones and start attacking these other drones. Because if the government claims that that's not them doing it, but they don't know who it is, then we're going to start taking that matters into our own hands. That's what's happening. So now you have the state governments and the government saying no fly zone. And because if people ignored that, they're like, now we're going to start shooting drones down. And so it's when they say mystery drones, they're not referring to the ones that were originally being seen and filmed from the ground. It is now those drones that don't belong to us we're going to shoot down. I'd be very surprised unless Peter's right. And I've said the same thing. To where we think that they might be trying to roll out the fake alien invasion. If that's the case, yeah, they're going to shoot down a few drones and go, we don't know where they came from. It might be aliens. If they do that, that means they're really seriously going to roll out. There's going to be a fake alien invasion shortly thereafter. Okay? Because I know for a fact there's a quarantine around this solar system and this planet. So there isn't an alien, physical alien force that can fly here in alien crafts and invade this country. Can't happen. Okay, so you might see that start. You might see other alien crafts attacking those alien crafts. But if the government then says, we don't know what's going on, there's a war in the space, that's because our people are shooting down their people's things. Because it is possible that they might try and roll this out going forward. There's a lot of us that start thinking that out here to where it looks like that's what they're trying to roll out now because they've lost power. 60 countries. Peter, if you're still online, didn't you guys in Ireland just have your elections? And I didn't get a chance to talk to you and find out how those went, whether you voted out the progressives in your different parties over there, or if they still have communist control over your country. Because 62 countries around the world in the last 6 months voted them all out of power. Okay, and France's government collapsed, and the people over there are telling Macron to step down, and the people of Canada are telling Trudeau to step down. And if he doesn't, they're going to vote him out of office when the election comes up for them, which is coming up, I think, in 2025 or in 2026. Okay, so that kind of stuff is already happening around the world, and they're getting more desperate about keeping power. So it's very possible that they could be rolling that out. We'll find out, Denise, what'll happen as we go forward. We'll find that out in the next month here in the United States, because in 32 days, Donald Trump will be sworn in, and that whole thing's going to go away unless they try to stop that and have an alien invasion so they can take control, lock down things, and usurp Donald Trump being the president. We'll see if that happens. If that happens, there'll be civil war, and so. I'm not concerned with it because if it happens, it'll be bad. But then the evil people will seriously be in trouble.
In some way. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is absolutely correct. 69.17 Questioner. Now, this is a point that I find quite confusing to me. It is a function of the free will of the positively polled.
So the people of Ireland didn't vote them out. Well, I mean, there's always another election. This was just like here, they voted Biden in. We had to wait 4 years to get Biden out. And some people might think that I'm their enemy right now because they're brainwashed and they believe that the people that are in charge of this. It's weird that the same people will say all the politicians are evil and there's a deep state, but I'm voting for the Democrats. And I'm like, so you're voting for the deep state? Well, it's better than the Republicans because they're the deep state. Well, you just said they're both the deep state, and now you're choosing a side. How could you choose a side over them both if you believe honestly that there is nobody in the government that is in fact not evil? How can you want to vote for any of them? Why don't you think that you should be voting for a third party, someone that is running as an independent to overthrow that stuff? Right. So unless you're brainwashed, and then they get mad at me and they block me or yell at me or say that I'm brainwashed myself. And then they run out and vote and then say, I don't understand why we have to have lockdowns and I'm forced to get a shot and my taxes are so high and the gasoline's so high and I can't afford rent. Well, you voted for those people. You put them in power and this is what they did to you. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Life is crap in the United States, and it has been for 4 years because Joe Biden got in office and those people that back him. And before that, was life better? when Donald Trump was in office. No, it sucked, did it? Gas prices were cheap, food was cheap, rent was cheap, all of your fuel bills were cheap. I'm just saying. That wasn't him. That was because Barack Obama before him. Okay, so now everybody voted Donald Trump in office. So if none of that happens, you can say, told you. That's what I tell people. If none of that happens going forward for 4 years and everything continues to go up, you can say that it was Donald Trump. But what will happen is as soon as he gets in office, they'll go, see, nothing's happening, because they have to change things from the way it was under Joe Biden. And so then you're going to see everybody going, now he's blaming everything on Joe Biden. So just like Joe Biden blamed everything on Donald Trump. Oh, no, that was different because it was Donald Trump's fault. It's you see it. Do you understand that doesn't add up if you're an adult? So your party it's always the other party's fault that if they don't succeed. But when the other party gets in, if they don't succeed, it's not your party's fault at all. But your party didn't succeed because of them before. So if they couldn't succeed because of them before, and the next party got in, or you're saying that it was still the party before them, and so the nobody can succeed because somebody 8 years ago did something, and you guys didn't have the power to change that? I thought you were like in charge of everything, right? So it never adds up. It's just people that are ignorant and think that it does, and they choose a side, and unfortunately they get brainwashed, and then they choose a side, and they think that they have to fight against evil, and that guy's evil because they told me so, and that guy's over there with his people telling him you're evil. And the truth is they're both telling you that you're evil so that you guys won't see that they're actually evil. That's the problem that we have in this place. And Raw's rooting against that. Raw's telling you that's the modus operandi of evil people that came here to take this place over, and what they do. That is their MO. That's how they divide people and how they conquer people.
Polarized entity to move into negatively polarized time/space. However, it is also a function of his lack of understanding of what he is doing. I am sure if the entity had full understanding of what he was doing, that he would not do it. It is a function of his negatively polarized other self creating a situation by which he is, shall I say, lured to that configuration.
Right. No, I'm aware of that, Peter. Peter was saying Sinn Féin was the biggest party in Ireland, and the majority of vote in Ireland that got them into power. They were pushed out by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. Yeah. So no, I'm aware of that. I was just wondering if that continued, if the people voted them back in office over there, and it seems like they did. That happens. It happened here. It happens. It's just that you guys over there aren't tired enough of it to vote them out of power yet. That'll happen. Happened here. Took another 4 years for Americans to go, you know what? I don't want that. I want better gas prices, better food prices, better everything prices. I want to make more money. So you got nothing to lose, and that's why they did that. So Canada's getting to the same point. People are like, we don't have anything to lose. We know what it's like under this guy. Maybe we should throw him out and try another guy. That's just the normal progression of what citizens should do. You should say, you know what? Okay, so I like this guy, but since he got into office, the prices of everything went up. The only people that seem to be making money are the rich people. And these people keep saying that the other guy is for the rich people, but no matter what, it seems like the rich keep getting richer. Yeah, that's true. But the only way that poor people can get money, or to make money, or to get rich, is to make the rich richer, because the rich now own everything, because everybody's allowed them to own everything. So because everybody's allowed them to buy everything and own everything, they control everything. Therefore, you can't make money unless they make money. That's the way they set the system up now. Okay, so until you change the system, it's always going to be the rich are going to get richer than you do. Okay, no matter what you do, because it's the house's money. If you go to Las Vegas and you gamble, there is a 75% chance that you're going to walk out of Las Vegas missing money. There's only a 25% chance that you're going to win money. Okay. It's the same thing if you're on the stock market. There's a 75% chance that you're going to lose your money, and the corporations are going to gain that money from you. Okay. So the societal structure, the way it is in the world right now, is set up either 80-40 or 75-25, right? Or 80, not 80-20, I meant 80-20 or 75-25. It's not 50-50. It's not the other way around. The rich and the elite All money filters up to them. You can make money off of them, but they're going to make more money off of you than you will. It's just like me publishing a book. My publisher makes more money off of every book that I sell than I do. And if you guys buy my book from Amazon, Amazon takes the lion's share of the sale, and then my publisher takes the lion's share of what's left over, and I make like $1 off of every book. You spend $40 on the book, and I get, if you buy a hardcover, I get $5 out of that 40. The other money of that $45 you spent for that book, 20 of it goes to Amazon and 20 of it goes to my publisher. Okay, that's the way it works in the world. I make more money if you buy the ebook. If you buy Kindle or the ebook, I make $3 to $4.50 per whichever one of those you buy. If you buy the hard copy, the physical copy of a soft cover or the hard cover, I make less money. The middlemen make more money because I have to pay for the shipping out of my income because they don't want to pay it out of theirs. So unless you pay for the shipping, like because you have Prime, then I don't get charged for it. But if you don't have that, I get charged for the shipping that they send it to you off of my profit because my publisher also doesn't want to pay for it. That's the way it works. So I have to sell more books to make more money, but they get rich in the meantime. So if I want to get rich off of selling my books, I can, but they're going to be richer than me off of selling my same book than I'm going to be because that's the way the system is set up in the world. It's just that way. You can't get rich without making rich people rich unless I were to create my own publishing company and publish my own book that way. That's the only way that I would get all the money.
What is the principle with respect to the first distortion that allows this to occur, since we have two portions of the creator, each of equal value or equal potential, shall I say, but oppositely polarized, and we have this situation resulting? Could you tell me the philosophical principle behind this particular act? Ra, I am Ra. There are two important.
So you guys, Peter, you're saying that in 2025, you guys will be able to enact another vote and hopefully vote them out. Well, I hope that's the case. That would be all right that you do that then. See, because over here we have 2 years and 4 years. So every 2 years we have elections. We have for the president, it's every 4 years, but all the rest of the Congress for the House and the Senate is every 2 years is elections for them. So literally every 2 years we're electing congressmen and senators, and then every 4 years we're electing a president of the United States, and then the president puts the judges into place. So depending on the politics of the president, that's the politics of the judges that you get in there, even though judges are not supposed to be political.
Points in this regard. Firstly, we may note the situation wherein an entity gets a rip.
Yeah, no, that's just the way it is, Denise. Most people just don't talk about it because what that is the way it is. I mean, if you look it up, that's just the way it is. If you sell something on Amazon, they take like 60% of the sale. And so if I'm the only person that is selling it on Amazon, I get 40% of the profit. But because I'm selling a book that a publisher published, they take a portion of the money that's left over, and I get the smallest portion. It's just the way it works. And that's why people write more than one book, because unless your book goes completely viral, and even then the publishers still make more money than you do. I'd have to sell $1 million to make $1 million. Right? Then the government's going to take half of that. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the world where they tax you on everything. So if I make $1 million, the government's going to take almost $500,000 of that $1 million. And if I sell 1 million books, my publisher is going to make $10 million or $15 million or $20 million, depending on how many books were sold directly from them. And if I sell all exclusive if I sell $1 million books on Amazon, Amazon will make $40 million off of me making $1 million. That is just the way this system is set up. The system is set up that it's gamed so that the most of the profits go to the corporations and filter up to the 1%. If the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. If you don't educate yourself and you don't look into it, you don't realize that. That's why I tell people, if you ever start a company, never get greedy and put it on the stock market. The second you put it on the stock market, the clock is ticking to when you get removed from owning that company and shareholders take control of it. And you'll find that if you become very popular and you go on the stock market, you will find that Vanguard, BlackRock, and the Orion Group are going to own your company outright by the time that that company goes 4 years or 5 years hence, when you put it on the stock market, they're going to own more stock in that company than you are. And they're going to take it from you. And if you try to stop them, they'll use the hedge funds that they own to ruin your company and destroy you. This is the way they work. This is the way the system works. And if you don't educate yourself to that, you don't see that that's how it works. And they get richer and richer and richer and make more and more money. So then the only thing that you see is politicians claiming that the other person is going to pay their rich friends. They're not lying to you, but the truth is the people usually who are telling you that are also rich. Okay. And how did they get rich? Because the rich people were paying them to make sure they got richer. Do you see? So the system is corrupt because it was created corrupt. This is the modus operandi of these evil people that believe they own the earth. You have to realize that. And people go, well, there's nothing we can do about it. That's what they want you to believe so that you don't do anything about it. What we can do about it is make things worth their while. Nobody will change anything in this world unless you make it worth their while to do so. It's going to be really hard to wrench back control and say we're going to do away with money. They'll never allow that to happen because that's their livelihood. That is what their religion is, making profit and owning everything. If you take away everything, they want you to believe that you're going to do that. We're going to take away ownership from everything and make everybody equal. What they're telling you is you're not going to own anything, but we're going to own it all. That's what they're doing. We will control it all. Well, you're the same rich people being backed by the same people who already own everything. What they're trying to do is get you to buy into socialism and communism so you give up everything else they don't have of yours now. Your cars, the ownership of your house, your cars and everything else, your personal ownership. They're trying to get that now. And they're telling you, you won't have to worry about anything. We'll give you a paycheck and you'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. And then they'll own it all. They're making all the profit. And then they're going to charge you for living in their house. Do you see? And then they're going to control your car. And so that if they decide there's a lockdown, they'll just turn your power off by flicking the switch, going into a computer, shut down your car, go into a computer, shut down your house, go into a computer, turn off your gas, turn off your refrigerator because you went against what they told you to do. And now then they make it illegal. If you go outside and start cooking outside, they make that illegal. And they'll come and arrest you and it's a felony. This is what happens. So everyone's like, I would rather just sit on my ass and let the government give me money. Okay, but then they own you because now they're only giving you enough to survive, to not die of starvation. And they control everything you do now. And they control you and they own your house, they own your car, you're just driving what they let you drive. Then they're going to start telling you where you're going to work and how much work you're going to do, because that's what happens 100% of the time in every country that is socialist. It turns into a communist country. And then you want to go, let's go to a restaurant. You go to a restaurant and it is 2:00 in the afternoon. And they're like, sorry, we're closed. Why are you closed? Aren't you guys supposed to be open until 10? Yeah, but we only have to help 1,000 customers and we already did that. So we don't have to help anybody else. Well, but I want to get food. Too bad. I don't have to cook you any food because I gave my quota for the day. We already made our quota. So now we're going to sit here and get paid to do nothing and just hang out here until we get to go home at 8:00 because the government doesn't care. We did 1,000 people. That's all we're required to do. So now we don't have to cook anymore. So we're getting paid to do nothing now. And that is what happens in every single country that goes down that road in history. But they don't teach you that in school anymore. So you don't know that. You should look into that. First step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. Let's continue.
Roadmap which is poorly marked and in fact is quite incorrect. The entity sets out to its destination. It wishes only to reach.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's right. It's just the way the system is. Penny says it doesn't mean it's right that they get more money than he does. It is the system. It is the system. That's why in the United States during the Revolutionary War prior to that, the founding fathers went out and created and bought and created their own printing presses so they could print their own books and print their own newspapers and print their own flyers and educate the population. because the rich oligarchs owned all the printing presses and the newspapers and the like, and you couldn't print a book without somebody else's leave. You couldn't print a newspaper, so when they didn't want you to get information out to the people, you had to go and knock on doors and speak to them. When they put guards out to watch you and to arrest you if you were trying to do that, you had no way to communicate with people, so they went out and created, built, and bought their own printing presses so that they could pass off flyers to people as they were walking down the street without anybody catching them, so people could read them. Okay, that's what they had to do to start the Revolutionary War in the United States of America. So they were already aware of that. It was already happening back then, and you can look that up in history too. You have people that created their own printing presses so they could print up their own stuff and hand out the stuff for people to read, because the oligarchs who were loyal to the king owned all the printing presses and all the publishing companies at the time. So they had to create new ones that they controlled, and then they turned into the very people that they didn't want that they were fighting against. The American government, as soon as it got established, became exactly the same, exactly what what's his name said. I can't think of his name right now. I was just talking about him. The guy, if you look at the movie, The Patriot, there was a true story about Benjamin Martin. When they were wanting to, when they went to Jamestown to vote on whether they were going to sign the Declaration of Independence and overthrow the English out of America, when they were in the government building, Benjamin Martin, who was a retired captain from the military who fought in the French Indian Wars, he, as a patriot, he came to give a vote of whether he was going to say yes, yay or nay, we should sign this Declaration of Independence or not. His question to them, this is in real life, and it was in the movie. The movie's based on a true story, and most people don't know that, and they watch that movie, and they're like, that was a great story. Really happened. When they said, should we sign the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Martin got up and said, why should I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? Okay. He understood the politics of what was happening, and that the same people that were not wanting taxation without representation and wanting to free themselves and rule themselves, not under the tyrannical rule of the English king, he realized these guys are all landowners and they're just going to become rich aristocrats here, and they're going to become 3,000 of them are going to become that one king. And that's exactly what happened. So he said he didn't want to vote to do that, and he didn't. He voted no, and they voted yes anyways, and they went to war. And then he said, "Oh, I'm warning you that if we do this, war is going to come to our land. Our children are going to learn of it. They're going to see it. It's going to be amongst us, and we're all going to die here." And then it happened, and it was on his land, and one of his sons got killed, and that changed, and he started fighting because of that. And then his other son joined the military against his will, and he got injured and almost died, and they were arresting him. That's how his other son got killed. They were arresting his oldest son, and they were going to go and execute him. And his younger son tried to save his brother, and the dragoons shot him. And because of that, the father now lost one son and was about to lose another son, and they burned his whole house down. So now he was mad, and then he went to war against the English and eventually became a colonel in the American military quickly, because he was already a colonel. He rejoined the military, and then he kept Cornwallis in the South and helped free the United States. But he didn't want to fight the war, okay, because he understood that as soon as we're done with this, the government's going to be formed, and they're going to take control, and they're going to be the same people over here instead of over there. And it's true. It's actually what happened, right? Because they're just as greedy, and he understood that. Even though most of them were fighting for freedom, right? I mean, think about that. They told black people, slaves, that if you fight in this war, we're going to free you. And that was in 1776, and it wasn't until 1862, 100 years later, more than 100 years later, when the black people were actually freed in this country. So they fought to free the country, and then most of them ended up slaves anyways. And they were told, this is going to be a new land, and we're not going to have this slavery. It took another 100 years for that slavery to end in the United States, and another war over that to have it happen. So if you're not educating yourself, here's my point, and I'll get back to Ra. If you're not educating yourself to the politics of this world and you think you know what's going on, you're fooling yourself because you don't understand. Back in the 1900s, in 1902, okay, in 1902, Henry Ford said, and was quoted, you can look this up, it was in 1902 or 1903, you can look it up. He said, if the American population understood global economics and how that actually worked, there would be a revolution today. Because he understood how global economics works. 120 years ago, nothing's changed in that time period. So if you don't learn social economics, global economics, if you don't learn civics and you don't learn these subjects anymore because they don't teach them in this country, if you don't learn those things, you don't go out there and find these classes that are there. They don't require them anymore, but they're there. If you don't learn that and understand how it works, how the stock market works, the stock market is no different than going into a gambling casino in Las Vegas. No different. Okay? It's set up so that the rich people who own the stock market make most of the money. The same way as gambling casinos are set up, that the rich people who own the gambling casino makes most of the money. No different. It is designed to fool you and trick you out of your money. Stock market is the same way. The housing market is the same way. Loans, everything, all of it, credit cards, all of that. Your slave chain is your debt. They took off the chains off of your ankles and let you believe you're free, and they put you into debt. And they keep you in debt. And you keep paying your debt. And that is your slave chain. You have to go to work to pay your debts. They encourage you to incur more debt, and that means that you're locked into the system and you have to go and get more money, because otherwise they'll start confiscating your stuff when you owe them money. When they owe you money, they have 90 days to give it to you. When you owe them money, if you don't give it to them right now, they start taking your money from you. And if you don't have money, they start taking property. All of that is designed. It is the system that is designed. So it's not wrong. No one makes money unless other people make money. Even if you start your own business, you have to run your business out of somewhere. Places like this one, I can't run my business out of here because they don't want me having people come to this place. So I have to have a separate address to run a business because I can't do it here. Okay. And if you run a business in any state in the United States, the state government wants money from you and the federal government wants money from you. So you have to pay them for the right to run a business on their land. And then you have to pay taxes. So you paying them means that you have a license, which means they check on you, and you have to now disclose their sales to them, or they penalize you and put you in jail. Do you see? So if you're making money, you have to pay taxes to them. That's a tithing to the landowner. No different than when there was a king that occupied land and had barons living there, or princes or noblemen living there, and you were on their land and you had to pay a tithing to their land, but they let you work their land and live on it. That's exactly what's happening now. It's no different. It's no different. You need to realize that. That's why you pay rent on a place that you live in, or you have a mortgage on the place you live in, or you have a loan on your car. They don't want you paying cash for the car. You own it outright. But then if you own the car outright, you have to pay the state to have the right to drive on the streets. So you have to put a license plate on it, a tags and registration on it that you have to pay for, and then you have to insure it. All of that is a money-making scheme so that the corporations make more money. You have to realize this in life, that that's the way it is. So if you want to make money, someone else is going to get richer than you are no matter what you do. It's just the way the system is designed. You can only get so rich before they try to stop you from getting in their way. They'll allow you to get rich as long as they're getting rich off of you. That's how it works. They've set it up that way, and we have to change those tactics. We have to change that, right? So we have to change everything about society. It's not hard to do. It's just that everybody has to become educated. If everybody becomes educated on what's really going on, then people are going to want to stop it. And then that's when you start realizing you actually have the power, because they don't make money if you don't buy their stuff. They don't make money. That's why they don't want you cooking for yourself. Because if you're cooking for yourself, then only the people who sell you the products make the money. They want everybody not knowing how to do any of that stuff, so you have to have someone else cook it for you, so they charge you more money for it. If you go to a fast food restaurant in the United States right now and buy a burger, a fries, and a soda for one meal, it's going to cost you $20, $30. If you buy those products and cook it in your own house, that same hamburger is going to cost you about $1.25 for the entire meal. Do you see why they don't want you to learn how to cook for yourself? You can get a pound of flour for less than $5, even now with this crazy inflation. Okay, maybe $5 these days for a pound. For 5 pounds, a 5-pound bag costs you like $5. They used to be like 35 cents, right? Maybe they cost you $5. That 5 pounds of flour, you can cook 100 or 200 loaves of bread. You can cook all kinds of things, pies, cakes, candies, just from that one bag of flour. They don't want you buying flour. They want you buying individual pies, because if you make a pie, it'll cost you about another $1.30 to make that pie. But if you go to the store and buy it, it's going to cost you $10 to $30. They want you not cooking so that they make more of your money. So you have less of it, and you don't know that you're spending all of your money, and you think you're poor. I don't have any money. You don't have any money because you're giving it all away. You're buying a Starbucks, 4 Starbucks a day for $7 a piece. You're eating fast food restaurants at $30 or $20 a meal. Take one day's worth of pay that you pay out of your pocket for all of those things and make those things in your own house. You're going to have to pay money up front, but by the end of a month, you're going to find that you have more than $1,000 extra in your bank. They don't want you having that. They don't want you being self-sufficient. They want you on their payroll. They want you poor, because then if you have extra money, you also have extra time on your hands. Well, no, I won't, because I'll be doing all the cooking. You won't be sitting in lines. You don't know how much time you're spending sitting in fast food restaurant lines or going into stores to buy stuff every time you want to eat. You take all of that away and do it for yourself. It takes you less time to cook for yourself than it does to do all those things in a day, and at 1/3 or less than that of the cost. When you have that much time on your hands and that much money on your hands, you start thinking and paying attention. They don't want you doing that. They want you so occupied, sitting in line, pissed off, driving back and forth to places, eating food that lowers your vibration, so that you don't pay attention to what they're doing, and you're unaware that all of this is set up so that it takes all of your money and keeps you at a low vibration and having just enough money to not starve to death. Running after a carrot that is dangled in front of your face that you can never get to. Think about that. It's the truth. That's what Ra's warning you about.
The point of destination, but becoming confused by the faulty authority and not knowing the territory through which it drives, it becomes hopelessly lost. Free will does not mean that there will be no circumstances when calculations will be awry. This is so in all aspects of the life experience. Although there are no mistakes, there are surprises. Secondly, that which we and you do in workings such as this carries a magical charge, if you would use this much misunderstood term. Perhaps we may say a metaphysical power. Those who do work of power are available for communication to and from entities of roughly similar power. It is fortunate that the Orion entity does not have the native power of this group. However, it is quite disciplined, whereas this group lacks the finesse equivalent to its power. Each is working in consciousness, but the group has not begun to work as a group. The individual work is helpful, for the group is mutually in aid, one to another. 69.18 Questioner. This instrument performs services on Sunday night, channeling other members of the Confederation. We are reluctant to continue this because of the possibility of her slipping into trance and being offered the services of the negatively polarized adept. Are there any safeguards to create a situation where she cannot go into trance other than at a protected working such as this one? Ra. I am Ra. There are 3. Firstly, the instrument must needs improve the disciplined subconscious taboo against requesting RA. This would involve daily conscious and serious thought. The second safeguard is the refraining from the opening of the instrument to questions and answers for the present. The third is quite gross in its appearance, but suffices to keep the instrument in its physical complex. The hand may be held. 69.19 Questioner. Then you are saying just by holding the instrument's hand during the channeling sessions that this would prevent trance. Ra, I am Ra. This would prevent those levels of meditation which necessarily precede trance. Also, in the event that, unlikely as it might seem, the entity grew able to leave the physical complex, the auric infringement and tactile pressure would cause the mind/body/spirit complex to refrain from leaving. 69.20 Questioner, we keep bringing up points out of the Esmeralda Sweetwater book, that being one particularly in the book. I was wondering, in that we were attempting to retrieve the space girl's mind/body/spirit complex from what must have been negative time/space, as it was placed there by the magician Trostrick, was the scenario of Trostrick's actions working with the space girl, and in Esmeralda Sweetwater's magical ritual that she designed to help retrieve the space girl's mind/body/spirit complex. Were both of these techniques approximately reasonable, or were there any errors in the design of these magical techniques? Ra, I am Ra. There were no errors. We only remind each that this particular character imaged forth by you was an experienced adept. 69.21 Questioner, you mean the character Trostrick? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. We referred to Esmeralda, as this imagined entity was called. We may note that long practice at the art which each intuits here would be helpful. We cannot speak of methodology, for the infringement would be most great. However, to speak of group efforts is, as we scan each, merely confirmation of what is known. Therefore, this we may do. We have the available energy for one fairly brief query. 69.22 Questioner, there are many techniques and ways of practicing so-called white magical arts. Are rituals designed by a particular group for their own particular use just as good or possibly better than those that have been practiced by groups such as the Order of the Golden Dawn and other magical groups? Ra, I am Ra. Although we are unable to speak with precision on this query, we may note some gratification that the questioner has penetrated some of the gist of a formidable system of service and discipline. I am Ra. May we thank you again, my friends, for your conscientiousness. All is well. We leave you rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Go forth with joy. Adonai.
Okay. All right. So we got through 2 sessions today. That's a good sign, right? They were not really long. I mean, I probably could have went through 3 if I didn't talk as much, right? All right, I'm going to go because it's a little bit after 5. I got to get my mom in the shower and then get us dinner coming up pretty soon. So Merry Christmas, guys. If I don't talk to you between now and then, those of you who are listening to me around the world, I won't be back on until next Friday, but I will be on, so it'll be after Christmas. So I won't be doing the Wednesday Q&A because Wednesday is Christmas. So I won't be doing the Q&A for that week coming up, but I will be back on Friday. Don't forget the following Sunday, a week from this Sunday, or the Monday if you're in Australia, I'm going to be helping Jacqueline Taylor, and she's going to be doing if you're in the Law of One chat group, you know that because we're already posting in there and talking about it. But she's doing the global ambassador. She always does a global ambassadors for the solstice. So we're going to be doing that on the 29th, 30th, depending on where in the world you are at the time. It's not going to be a 2-day event. It's actually a 1-day event, but it's the 29th for one half of the world and the 30th for the other half of the world. It'll be just the same day. It's just that those of you who are in Australia, it's the 30th for you. So I'll be on there helping her do that. That day, and it'll be 2 p.m. Eastern time, so that's 11 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's 11 a.m. Western time. So that's what is that? 8 hours from that is 6 p.m. European time, I guess. That's if you look at 11 a.m. West Coast America, that's GMT minus I think 7 still. Even though we do the time change, I'm not sure if that changes that. It might be GMT minus 8. So if you're in the UK, you're GMT plus 1 or plus 2. Anyway, so you guys can figure that out. Well, but I'll talk about it again next week on Friday before the Sunday, and then we'll be on her channel. And I think I'm going to be broadcasting it as well. I'll get that from her between now and then because I think she's going to have me do that as well. So I don't know if we're just going to be on Zoom live on Zoom or if I'm going to be streaming it as well. We'll figure that out. Because usually we try to do both. So we'll figure that out if that's what we're going to do. It doesn't matter to me either way. So that's going to be cool. We'll get the link for you, but it's going to be on a Zoom link. So I think she's going to go live there on Zoom, but we'll figure it out. Otherwise, we'll still be live. I just don't know what platform we'll be live on. But I'll share it out, so it'll be on all the places that I share my podcast on anyways. And then hopefully I'll get a copy of the MP3 file and then post that for you guys out there that listen to me on the MP3 file. And again, for those of you who are listening to this, you got down to the end and you realize there's a missing file, I'm going to get that file and put it in there. I had technical difficulties because I didn't clear out enough room in the memory from StreamYard, so it didn't record. So I have to rip the video from one of the other platforms and then convert it to the MP3 file, and then I'll get it out to you guys. But I'll have the right file number on it, so it'll be the right episode. So you'll have an episode skipped, and then the episode will be published after that, probably tomorrow or Sunday. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you and I don't talk to you, Merry Christmas. If you're in the Law of One chat, I'll more than likely talk to you between now and Christmas anyways, because I'm in there a lot talking to you guys. All right, this has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Have a great holiday.